Congratulations! You have successfully installed the Asterisk open source PBX. Welcome to AstriCon 15. And now, without further delay, the person who has the other half to this locket, Mr. Mark Spencer.
Thank you, Alison.
Just hang on for a minute, Mark.
Okay.
We've got a couple of other things to do first.
Okay.
But we do want you, for definite. Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Good, good. I'm very pleased, very pleased. Another great AstriCon. Got up to an excellent start yesterday. Had lots of interesting things going on. There's a few domestics that I'd like to tell you about. Have you heard about the dangerous demos? Yes. You need to hear more about the dangerous demos. James, would you like to stand up for a moment? This is young James Bodie, a fellow Brit. The dangerous demos this year are the biggest and best they've ever been. They're sponsored by cloudonics.io, so thank you very much to the Cloudonics guys. And there's more prizes than there's ever been. And in honour of Sangoma and Digium coming together, and therefore the free PBX and Asterisk projects been under the same roof, there is a special prize for the best use of free PBX in the dangerous demos. How about that? It's amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Okay, other things to tell you about. In fact, actually, could I do my little selfie now with our lovely lady photographer? There she is. We're just going to do a selfie. This one has special importance this time. This is a very important AstriCon tradition of a selfie, but this time I really want you to watch my back, and then I'll explain afterwards. It's not an official selfie. That's great. Thank you very much for that. Thanks a lot. Okay, so the reason I wanted to watch my back was because you all got this piece of paper in your bag. This piece of paper is to do with the AstriQuest, and I've already had a couple of people come up to me today to talk about this. You will find a username, a password, and some other stuff to get you a connection. You will also see that the AstriCon t-shirt, this is why I wanted you to watch my back, has some code on. That code will compile. So if you want to partake in the AstriQuest this year, that is the start of it. It's not the end of it. It's actually, there's a bit of process involved. And if you get through, it says here that you could win a fabulous prize. Amazing stuff. Just back on the dangerous demos, we've got a tech check. Last year, there was a couple of technical issues, and so in this very room, between 10:30 and 12:30, there's a tech check for anybody that wants to check their laptop and what have you against the projector, etc., for the dangerous demos. And the last notice I would like to give you is regarding lunch. Lunch is at 12. It's in National Ballroom B, which is the same place we had lunch yesterday. Oh, and there's one more last thing. Then there's the happy hour, 4:30 to 6:30, and that's at the Trevi Bar, which is in the main lobby, down the stairs to the outside. So I hope I'll see you all there. With that said, I want to introduce the man, Mark Spencer. He's the reason we're all here. Give him a very, very big AstriCon welcome.
Thank you, David. Welcome to AstriCon, everybody. Thank you guys for coming out here. It's been quite an adventure, both getting here and it probably will be a little bit of an adventure getting back. So, but yeah, this is a really interesting time for me. So, I don't have any kids, but I used to be one, so I think I can speak towards what it must be like to have kids. But I feel like having a company and having a project, Asterisk and Digium are sort of the closest thing to kids that I've had. And when I started these out, I was really focused on wanting to have them be what I sort of envisioned they would be going forward. And as more people got involved in the company and the project, they start to take on life of their own and start to take on a personality of their own. And so you start interacting with them differently. So, I look at Digium as something that I started, and it's grown, it's got a personality of its own, it's been influenced by all kinds of really important people along the way. And now we've come to the spot that Digium is getting married, basically. And Digium's getting married off, and it's going to have a family of its own. And I'm still going to be very interested, and I do plan to come and attend AstriCon each year and follow up and see how things are going. But this marriage has been a long way coming. Some of you may not know, but the very first Asterisk system I built, of course, there were no Digium cards back then. So it was built using a Sangoma WAN pipe connected up to some AdTran gear to be able to just get calls in and out of the system. So these companies have definitely grown up together quite a bit. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Bill Wignall, the new CEO of Sangoma, or I guess the new CEO of Digium, and he has been the CEO of Sangoma. And I will also be heading out of here basically immediately to try to avoid this giant hurricane that's coming. So we'll see you guys next year.
Give me a hug. Well done. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Is my mic on okay? Yeah? Okay, so I was told I got like 10 minutes up here because by the time the merging of Sangoma and Digium was announced, the agenda for this event was locked down long ago. So here's what you're going to get from me for the next few minutes. I do want you to know that, you know, without you guys, there is no Asterisk. The community matters immensely to us. And since we won't have time for questions here today, I would like you to know that all of us from Digium and Sangoma would be thrilled to meet you. Find us during the course of the next few days. Come and say hi. We're good people. I'm a nice guy. I'd like to say hello. Come up and tell us what you do with Asterisk. So here's what we're going to talk about. I don't know, 2 years or maybe 3 years ago, I was asked to give a keynote at AstriCon. And Sangoma had just acquired FreePBX at the time. And there was, I don't know, maybe concerns overstated. There was a little bit of worry about, given what had happened in the open source industry with other projects historically, how committed was Sangoma to the open source world? And I gave this big long talk about how Sangoma had grown up and changed and how change works in tech companies. And at the end, I got this question from someone saying, yeah, that was a great talk. Thanks for the fancy PowerPoint slides. I don't quite believe it. I don't think you're committed to open source. So that's how it all kind of worked. Is the person who asked me that question here by chance? I was kind of hoping to meet you. No? Okay. You're probably not brave enough. If you are, come find me. So I said, like, we are all in. Sangoma has roots in open source. We're committed to it. We understand it. It's one of the backbones of our company's success and growth. And there was still a little bit of reluctance, even after my answer. And all I wanted to say now is, okay, so we are fully in. The most important message I want you to hear from me today is Sangoma is completely committed to Asterisk. Sangoma and Digium together value not just the project, but you guys incredibly. We have a very large team of people working on Asterisk. I'm going to talk a little bit about Sangoma over the next couple of slides. And as I said at the last keynote that I did here a couple of years ago, it was a talk about change and how nothing stays the same, everything's changing. Sangoma has changed a lot over the last few years. When I came in to take over the reins at Sangoma, one of the first trips I made was down to Huntsville, Alabama, to meet with Digium. It was clear to me that those companies belonged together right from the beginning. Timing wasn't right then. A few years later, as Mark has just said, it's made sense to put the companies together. As we merged those businesses, Sangoma has gone from $10 million to $100 million in sales. We're now one of the most significant players in the industry. We're completely committed to both Asterisk and FreePBX. We take the responsibility as stewards of those projects super seriously. We are the primary developers of both. We spend millions of dollars per year developing them, and we're still all in. We take that responsibility to be stewards of Asterisk very seriously, and I want you to know that we see a lot of benefits to you guys as the community as we merge together Digium and Sangoma. The company itself is now a very impressive organization. And you might ask, why is Bill Wignall telling me that? Why do I care as an Asterisk user? You probably should care, is our hypothesis. You want the project coming from an organization that has the resources and commitment to invest in it, to continue to evolve the project, to support it. Sangoma is now, as I said, $100 million in revenue, between 300 and 400 people all over the world. Right? We have staff in, I don't know, half of the US states, in Canada, Colombia, Ecuador, the UK, France, Spain, Belgium, Italy, India, Hong Kong. You get it, right? Sangoma is a serious player, and you now have that kind of a company behind the project that you care about. So you have longevity and stability and commitment. There's, I don't know, between 150 and 200 engineers writing code each and every day inside this company trying to make the project better for you guys. Okay, so that's kind of it from me. I want you to know that a lot of people at Sangoma and Digium put a lot of work into organizing this event on your behalf. Thank you to our team for doing that. Thank you so much to our sponsors, without which this kind of event is not possible. I hope you have a great AstriCon. Please enjoy it. Come say hi. Find us. We'll be on the floor, milling around. I have cards with me. If you don't find me and find someone else from Digium or Sangoma, ask for my contact information. I'm very happy to talk to you. And without further ado, where's Simon? Simon Woodhead, please come up. Simon's from Simwood. He's going to do our keynote talking about privacy. Nice to see you, man.
Thanks, Bill.
Do you need this at all?
No, I've got my own clicker up here if it's still here.
Okay, good, good.
Thank you very much. Morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. This is a unique privilege for me, and probably one that won't be repeated. So I'm really touched and humbled to be here speaking to you all. I'm going to talk today about privacy, or privacy, as we call it in the UK, because I think there's something wrong. There's something wrong with big technology. I think we all know it. I want to explore what might be, what could be wrong, show off a few toys, and then look at what we can do as a community and what we can all do as an industry to hopefully make things better. If my clicker works. Okay, so I'm going to articulate the problem and talk about some solutions, but first I want to detour into a little bit of biology. The human heart pumps blood through our veins and arteries from before we're born to the moment we die. It's the most efficient pump ever known to man. But there's two other aspects of it that I'd like to look at. Firstly, it's the seat of love and compassion. And I want to take this uniquely privileged opportunity to say I love this community. I hate being away from home. I stay in enough hotels in a year that I don't crave the travel. But I come to these events and I'm spending time with friends. Some of the most selfless, giving, open-hearted people I know are in this room and certainly in this community. So I want to take this opportunity to just say thank you. Thank you for everything you've created. Thank you for everything you've enabled me to build with Simwood. And thank you for everything you've enabled me to become. Because the reality is I go home from events like this feeling nourished. The second thing is there's an organization called HeartMath that did some research on the heart some years ago. And they strapped participants up with brain and heart sensors. And they measured the brain activity versus heart activity in certain situations. They showed them a blank screen, asked them to push a button, and then they displayed them a randomly selected image. Some of the images were high arousal, and some of the images were low arousal. And then they saw a blank screen again, and they were asked to push the button, and the cycle repeated, and it went around 30 or so times. And this experiment was repeated subsequently around many labs around the world. And the results were quite astounding. What they noticed was about 5 seconds before an image was displayed, the heart rate would decelerate. But what was more interesting was that the heart rate would decelerate more if the image was high arousal. So the heart appeared to be exhibiting some kind of, to be tapping into some kind of intuition beyond the bounds of space and time, which I find quite fascinating. This has gone on to be a whole field in itself called neurocardiology, where the heart is considered to be a little brain, capable of learning, capable of decision-making, and we know that there's far more signaling from the heart to the brain than the other way around. And we know that we feel things in our heart first, then in our head, and then when we get this feeling in our gut, that's actually the third stage of conscious thought. And so the heart exhibits this kind of intelligence and this precognition, if you like. And that leads me on to privacy, that I think if we're honest with ourselves, we know there's something not quite right, but we can't quite put our fingers on it. How can the biggest, or some of the biggest, highest revenue companies in the world be giving away their service for free? Now, we know there's advertising, but there's a trade-off there that doesn't quite make sense to us. I'm old enough to remember when business was simple. If I wanted a lump of meat, or a cut of meat, I guess, I'd go to the butcher's. I'd say, can I have some meat, please? He'd say, yes, can I have some money? I'd give him my hard-earned wages, and I'd go away. He'd have my money, I'd have some meat. We're all happy. It was a one-dimensional transaction. But things aren't like that anymore. Being advertising funded is at least a consideration for a startup. And those that fund/direct startups, particularly in the technology space, have cottoned on to the blindingly obvious fact that if you give your service away for free, the take-up of it is going to be far higher than if you were charging for it. Imagine Google on a pay-per-search model. So the service has a good uptake of users, and that creates a steady supply of what I would suggest is the actual product, which is those users, or more specifically, the data from those users, which can then be sold to advertisers. And the transaction is more complicated than that, because when those users interact with those advertisers, there's a further flow of data and probably a further flow of money. It's very complicated, but boiling it right down, the user is getting this service, pictures of their friends' dinner and cat videos for free, and in return, they're giving their user data. And we all need to be aware of that trade-off. And my real point to you guys today is that I don't think we are. And maybe we more are in this room, but I think certainly if I speak to my granny or my old auntie, Google is free, Facebook is free. She doesn't appreciate what she's giving of herself in order to get it. And we need to. There are those that say, oh, Google knows everything about me anyway, or I have nothing to hide. I would suggest we all have something to hide. We all have curtains in our home. I think if I asked you to email me a list of all your passwords, some saucy pictures of your partner, and maybe a bit of background information on that rash you've been getting treated, I can't imagine there would be any takers, particularly if I was then going to put it up on a website to share with everybody and keep it for, I don't know, forever, just in case it was useful. And then, of course, there's the leadership in this space and their attitude to privacy.
Eric Schmidt is Google's CEO.
If you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Okay, so we can see where that's going. Now, if you want to run an advertising-funded model, if you want to collect user data, you need a massive database. Now, this isn't a database in the form that we all think. It isn't a relational database like MySQL or Postgres. It's called a graph database. Not graph as in pie chart or line chart, but graph in terms of associations between objects. And it's really simple. And from its simplicity, comes the ability to have massive, massive scale and massive, massive queryability, because fundamentally you're taking two objects. In our scenario, we're looking at a graph database, so one of those objects is you, the user. Another object could be, for example, AstriCon, or this hotel, or Orlando, or the person sitting next to you. And then we're taking a link between the two. So Dan attended AstriCon. Fred loves Yenny. And there's millions and millions of these links to objects going into these databases for each of us. And I put it to you, there's two massive ones that we populate every day, inadvertently or consciously, specifically Google and FaceBag. But there are dozens of others from second-tier startups, all trying to achieve the same. And we populate these things just through our everyday usage of these free services. But they're populated in other ways as well, from each other's usage of these free services. I saw something recently where Facebook was enabling advertisers to target people based on phone numbers that they'd never given Facebook, but phone numbers that were provided to them in other people's contact lists. So if I have a phone number that only you have, and you upload that contact list to Facebook, that becomes a link to me for the purposes of targeting advertising. And then there's facial recognition. Since 2010, we've been able to tag photos on Facebook. People have been training the algorithm since 2010. In 2014, they announced that DeepFace, which is the project involved with this, could get near human levels of facial recognition. Without a photo being tagged, it could identify people in photos. DeepFace could achieve 97.25%. A human that had met the person could achieve 97.5%. That was 4 years ago. AI's come a long way, and Facebook only had 1.2 billion users then. It's got twice as many training it now. Now, there's those of you that would say, oh yeah, but I use stealth mode in my browser, or I clear my cookies, so they're not tracking me. Well, we need to get away from this naive thinking that everything hangs on a cookie. Cookies, when we developed web apps 10 years ago, cookie was set, users logged in, cookie isn't set, user isn't logged in. But nowadays, for the purposes of tracking, there are many, many, many fingerprints around all of us that enable us to be identified. And a cookie may be part of it, but it's a very, very tiny piece. There's a technique called canvas fingerprinting, whereby unique aspects of the browser, such as version, fonts, plugins installed like Flash, are all effectively fingerprinted. And that enables a unique fingerprint representing you, usually pretty close to 100% unique, to be determined. You add in other factors, other metadata, such as geolocation, IP address, albeit transitory, other plugins like content blockers, and you can sure as damn it get to 100% unique, a unique fingerprint for somebody. And this is somebody in stealth mode with their cookies turned off. And WebRTC can be a part of this, of course, because with WebRTC, you can interrogate the devices that are available. You can get a unique fingerprint for each device that is available to the browser. So let's not assume we're not tracked. We're tracked. That's reality. But what are they tracking? It's only metadata. Well, this is a meme our government back in the UK have been trying to ram down people's throats for the best part of 3 years, as they've been trying to ram through, which they have now successfully done, what we call the Snoopers Charter. They're collecting metadata, and it's only metadata. It doesn't matter.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about.
That's exactly what this is about. That is only metadata. Nobody cares what he did in his hotel room. Nobody cares what was in the message that he sent to whoever it was that he sent. What matters, what is relevant and easy to store in a graph database, is his relationship with that hotel at that time. His relationship with the person that he messaged. Don't know why that's flickering. There's a great website, links at the bottom there, that attempts to debunk some of these things with a number of scenarios where through metadata alone you can build up a very, very clear picture of a scenario. And it's well worth having a look. Now, if you are the destination for something like 80% of eyeballs on the internet, and you have your like buttons and your free analytics service that third-party websites are going to feed you data through, you might still be dissatisfied that you're only getting something like 90% representation of internet usage. You might want more data. So what could you do? Well, you could offer a free DNS service. Now that would generate some quite useful metadata, albeit limited in its ability to be linked to people, but they're working on that. But really what you want to do is you want to get something on the desktop. If you can install software on the desktop, you're no longer operating within the bounds of this browser that constrains what you can access. You've got full access to that device with the privileges of the user that installed it. Now, this is all hypothetical, of course. It doesn't have to be a browser. It could be an instant messaging client, for example, or a tool to sync photos. There's all manner of things, but the key requirements are it's installed on the device, and it has a login to your service. Because that login gives you two things. One, it gives you a link between that device and that user, such that any metadata can be immediately linked. And two, let's say it's syncing bookmarks or exchanging messages. There is an expectation that there will be an encrypted channel between that piece of software and your service. A cynic might say that encrypted channel could also carry other things, such as metadata. A cynic might say that could scan the file system, perhaps, and collect metadata on the machine. It could also scan the network and determine devices that are around, and it could also further inspect the hardware to get further fingerprinting. That browser could even enable people to extend it with very helpful tools that could further violate their privacy. And it could even be extended with plugins that could violate their privacy cross-platform. So this is a plugin for Google Chrome that exploits a vulnerability in Facebook's Tinder API so that you can really usefully not only see all of your friends that are on Tinder, but you can get a moving map of where they all are at any one time. It's not right. Now, if you were frankly cheeky and you were on 75% of desktops, you could get on your white horse and you could champion a secure web. Now, don't get me wrong, the content of that, the secure web, crypto everywhere, I fully support. But a cynic might say that that could generate some fairly racy headlines, such as this one. But let's look at it. The browser vendor, for want of a better word, is giving up precisely 0. Because the browser, in any secure web session, the browser is in control of the key. The browser is encrypting everything going from the device up to the server and everything coming back again. They're not sacrificing any data to give you a secure web experience. In fact, what they're actually doing is preventing any competitors gathering metadata along the way. Now, don't get me wrong, I support it. It's a good thing, but let's be realistic about the sacrifice that they're making, or rather, not making. And people might say they're evil. There's all sorts of videos about how evil Facebook is, and conspiracy theories about why Google's dropped the "Don't be evil" from its mission statement. But actually, they're quite honest. If you read the privacy policies, they say exactly what they're going to be doing to you. This is an extract from Google's, where they talk about the fact that they're going to examine the network in the environment around your device to determine certain things about you. And they're going to take data from your sensors. Now, sensors is a deliciously vague word. Sensor to me says accelerometer or potentiometer. That could be useful. Data, am I looking at this web page laid down in bed, or am I looking at this web page sat next to my partner? That creates a very different set of distinction between metadata. But is a camera not a sensor? Is a microphone not a sensor? Is anything we could conceive that could intrude our privacy not a sensor? they've said here in plain sight. So with that, I've talked about sniffing networks around you and using it to identify other devices. So it's probably time to introduce you to some toys. So up here, apologies to those of you whose batteries haven't lasted terribly well the last couple of days. That might be me. It'll be fine after this talk. I'm scanning wireless on 2.4 and 5 bands, and we're scanning Bluetooth. Now, Bluetooth is really secure. It hops frequency something like 800 times a second, and the sequence and timing of those hops are only known to the two devices that are paired. And unlike Wi-Fi, it has no monitor mode, so snooping Bluetooth is really, really hard. Or at least was, until this little bad boy came along. This is called an Ubertooth, and it's basically software-defined radio that gives you essentially monitor mode for Bluetooth. So with that, I can suck all of the full packet capture of all of the Bluetooth activity in the room. Now, that is Bluetooth activity from active devices. So if you're discoverable, you're there. And it was shocking last night how many devices were just discoverable all the time. But most smartphones aren't discoverable permanently now. But if your phone is talking to your watch or your Fitbit is uploading your latest heart rate stats, because that's really important, then your device will be active, and this will get it. But actually, I'm not using that, because I discovered, after weeks of messing about with that, trying to identify devices, a really, really easy way to wake devices up if I needed to. Now, just on Bluetooth, before we leave it, on Ethernet and on Wi-Fi, we're familiar with a MAC address, unique address of the network card. On Bluetooth, we don't have quite the same thing, but it ends up in the same place. On Bluetooth, you have this thing called a low address part, which is part of what we consider a MAC address. And that is transmitted in every Bluetooth packet. Now, for our tracking purposes, there's only 16.7 million of them, so there's not enough entropy for that to be useful. And this also explains why if you've bought a Bluetooth device and it just doesn't work with one of your other devices, you could be getting a collision of these things. But if actually we can sniff sufficient packets, we can actually determine the other address parts. And we end up in a place where we've got what looks very much like a MAC address, the Bluetooth equivalent of a MAC address. Now, I've talked about Bluetooth being secure. That's classic Bluetooth. Bluetooth Low Energy, the latest version, is a whole different kettle of fish. The standard has the equivalent of a great big fix me in it, in the section on encryption. And therefore, many people deploying BTLE devices don't bother, or they roll their own. So they're encrypting the payload rather than at a higher level like you might see with classic Bluetooth. So none of this is necessary with BTLE. You can do it from a Raspberry Pi or the Bluetooth adapter built into your device. See all of the devices around you. And there's all sorts of challenges coming down the line from this, because BTLE seems to be in everything. If you're making a device and you want to give it Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, they come on the same chip nowadays, and if you make the massive volume commitment of 20 units, that chip will cost you 80 cents. So you can imagine if you're producing a few 100,000 or a few million devices, you're talking pence to put that additional chip in. And what you might find is that because they come on the same chip, you'll get devices that are built with Bluetooth support that have Wi-Fi because somebody's forgotten to turn it off, and vice versa. But of more interest to me, and for what we're talking about today, because they're on the same chip, there is a direct relationship between the MAC address, the equivalent of the MAC address on Bluetooth, and the MAC address on the Wi-Fi. So if I can track you on Bluetooth, I can track you on Wi-Fi, and vice versa. Now, if you're not content with just access to somebody's computer, you've exploded out the browser, you've got onto the device, but really you're then constrained by the physical hardware, and you want more data. What you need to do is make your own hardware. And I put it to you, it'd be relatively easy to include another one of these couple of cent chips in one of these devices, and you could justify that quite easily, hypothetically. And then you've got this device that people will put in their most intimate spaces, that's full of sensors that can also do various other things in terms of inspecting the RF environment. And people pay you money, by the way, for this. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to what I call the AstriCuter, which is, rather than tracking, it's a more fun way of looking at this in the terms of targeted executions of certain members of the community. So I don't have the privilege of having a browser on 75% of their desktops, and they haven't paid me any money to put a listening device by the side of their bed. So I've had to get certain metadata about them by social engineering over the last couple of days. And some were tricky, but you'd be surprised generally how compliant people were. So, what we've got. So we're tracking Bluetooth, Wi-Fi across the two bands, and I'm logging here. I haven't started the actual assassination script yet, but because this is AstriCon, we've made this scalable, right? So I've got 3 probes running there, and they're all VMs. They could be individual installs on Raspberry Pis. In fact, I did consider a drone with a probe sort of at either side so we could get directional control for assassination purposes based on signal strength. All of those are feeding into Redis, so we've got maximum scalability, because we might want thousands of these probes. And again, because this is AstriCon, the UI is WebRTC into Asterisk 16. So the idea is all of these probes are feeding into the database. When I start the tracking script here, we should see something happening on the WebRTC side. If I can find where I am. I absolutely love demos. What idiot would do a demo during a keynote?
Path is secure.
All right, let's start this again.
AstriCuter.
Turn that down a bit.
Scanning for geeks.
2, 6, 1.
Devices detected. Scanning for victims. David Duffett detected. Aw, he's so nice. I will not do it.
It got that one quite quick. I was bricking myself last night. It took 30 seconds to get one. Yeah, I'm in the wrong screen there. There we are. Can you get anybody else?
James Bode detected. Check out my dangerous demo, sucker.
There we go. Okay, I'll leave that running in the background just in case. But so where were we? Oh yeah, you've got this listening device.
Dan Jenkins detected. Oh, look at those chubby little cheeks.
Okay, so you've got this listening device by the side of your bed, right? That's full of sensors. Let's not go into the other weird shit that those things are reported to do. Certainly, anecdotally, the evidence for them doing naughty things is huge. Academically, it hasn't been corroborated yet, but you look at the patents that have been filed for
James Bode detected. Check out my dangerous demo.
Let's stop that. You look at the patents that have been filed, and it's kind of scary where they're going with this. And those of us that have had the sense not to buy one of these can't really escape them now, because if our neighbour's got one and they're able to suck in all of the Wi-Fi in the vicinity, regardless of what network it's on, such as that is, we're caught anyway by virtue of living next door. We go and stay in a hotel. They're talking about putting them in the hotel. What use a frickin' voice assistant is in a toilet, I do not know, unless number and frequency of bowel movements is useful metadata. Perhaps it is. But it goes beyond that. If you've got a device in your home that is permanently listening, And they are permanently listening. They may say they're not permanently recording, but they have to be permanently listening in order to pick up the Hey Alexa, Hey Google keywords, or whatever they're called. They can listen to other things. So let's say your business is advertising and you want to play a TV advert, but you want to put a high-frequency signature at the end of that advert that's imperceptible to the human ear, but can be picked up by this device in the home, that can register that user, you can see is there from his signature, has heard this advert. That's kind of useful. Next time he goes online, you can serve him up an online version of that advert, and they tell me if you see 2 adverts, that enhances the likelihood of you making a purchase. Mobile. I'm not going to go there because it's too depressing, and to be honest, it's a whole subject in itself. But suffice to say, take everything I've said about your digital signature and tracking and audio and sensors and put it in your pocket, going everywhere. Put a computer in your pocket and take it everywhere with additional wireless features. You know, NFC, it's got Bluetooth, it's got wireless, it's got a camera, it's got audio. That's a whole separate talk on its own. But I think Bluetooth is going to be in the news a lot more over the coming years, because I mentioned that it was quite hard to hack, and so people kind of gave up about 5 years ago. There was a few Bluetooth-specific hacks that were out there 5 years ago, but people kind of lost interest. BTLE is a whole different kettle of fish, and we're already starting to see replay attacks and various other things for simple things like light bulbs. But these Muppets seem to be putting Bluetooth in everything. Including, as you saw earlier, heart sensors and, pacemakers and pill bottles. So I joke with the Astrocutor about targeted assassination, but the prospect of assassinating somebody from 12 feet away with a laptop over Bluetooth is entirely realistic. Now, don't believe me, I'm an idiot. This is academic university research into the data that, I want to use the word leaked, but the data that is sent to Google by Chrome and by Android. Clean install of Android. It's quite a long read, but it's well worth doing to bring yourself kind of fully up to speed with the extent of this stuff.
Are you willing to change your business model in the interest of protecting individual privacy?
Congresswoman, I'm not sure what that means.
And again, isn't that the point? These guys, as long as we keep giving them data, they're going to keep taking it. And they're going to keep wanting more. And they're going to keep encroaching on further aspects of our life. Now, if you start looking into this, as I hope you will after this talk, you'll come across this phrase, species-level behavioral modification. And I'd like to play you 2 minutes of a 10-minute video that Google disavow, although at the end of it says for internal Google use only, which, whether it's real or not, whether it's Google's strategy or whether it's an internal product pitch, is frankly irrelevant. But listen to the content and the wording and just think in terms of potential. If you've got this database for several billion people over 15 years, what you could do with that.
Since the 1970s, huge efforts have been made in sequencing the human genome. Today, after many years of research and billions of data points, that sequence is known. By adopting a similar perspective with user data, we may begin to better understand its role. Just as the examination of protein structures paved the way to genetic sequencing, the mass, multi-generational examination of actions and results could introduce a model of behavioral sequencing. As gene sequencing yields a comprehensive map of human biology, researchers are increasingly able to target parts of the sequence and modify them in order to achieve a desired result. As patterns begin to emerge in the behavioral sequences, they too may be targeted. The ledger could be given a focus, shifting it from a system which not only tracks our behavior, but offers direction towards a desired result. We are at the very beginning of our journey of understanding in the field of user data. By applying our knowledge of epigenetics, inheritance, and memetics to this field, we may be able to make mental leaps in our understanding, which could offer benefits to this generation, to future generations, and the species as a whole.
You guys got midterms in a month or so. Keep all this in mind when you read your personalized newsfeed, or you look at comments from your personalized timeline. Both of the entities providing that personalized view of the world, selling advertising, knowing your every move, knowing your political inclinations, and even frankly knowing if you've been to vote. Looking forward, I can see a couple of other scary directions this could go in if multi-generational species or whole species multi-generational behavioural modification isn't scary enough. Facebook is considered to be nearing ubiquity. All we need is some muppet in central government to decide that Facebook should be a single sign-on to government services and therefore mandate usage of it. Facebook also has what they call their internal trust score, which is a commendable attempt to weed out trolls. But could that also in time be considered some kind of internet credit reference? Your score as an internet citizen. And if they were working with the banks, as the article suggests they might be, could your internet tangibility somehow affect your ability to procure services? Maybe specifically internet services, maybe the ability to open a bank account. I can't see any of this heading in a positive direction. We get this free stuff, but we're giving up so much for it. So I've probably depressed you enough. The question then is, what do we do about it? Well, every single one of you in this room, I expect, is the source of advice to friends and loved ones on technology things. I'm speaking to you guys because you're the early adopters of the early adopters. We need to educate people. There's dozens of links in these slides, and I'll work with David to try and make them available for you. But they were collected relatively easily over the last month. There's a fire hose of this kind of news flow, ignoring like the big one from Google yesterday and the big one from Facebook a month or so ago. There's a continual flow of these things once you're aware of them. And your loved ones don't know that for the sake of seeing a cat picture or a picture of somebody's dinner, they are giving up so much of themselves. And they don't know that in giving up so much of themselves, they're affecting you. And they don't know that everything we're collectively giving up is affecting our children. Now, I hate bringing children into it because it makes me sound like the flipping government. But that's the reality of the situation. Everything we're doing today, all of the training today is affecting subsequent generations. And we need to act. We need to get our own house in order. As a project and as a community, there's a lot more we can do to make sure we don't know what we don't need to know. And I'm talking here about encryption of config files, particularly user directories, that kind of thing. I'll bang the drum that I seem to bang every time I get on a stage about encryption of SIP and RTP. WebRTC has, frankly, whipped our arse in that respect, and that's good. I commend everybody involved in it. But the rest of us that are doing conventional SIP really need to get our house in order, because users expect their voice to be private. They expect it to be encrypted. They don't expect to be wanging their conversations unencrypted over the airwaves for some muppet like me to take a packet capture of. But we also need to change our behavior. We need to stop feeding them, because I think, as you saw, they're not going to change their business model if this data keeps on coming. They're just going to pursue more of it, because that's what they're selling. They've got free supply of what they sell. We need to change our behavior. And I'm going to run very quickly, because I'm conscious of time, through some open source and commercial with open source of their code projects that I use in my life and feel like a move in the right direction. Signal. These guys are awesome. The Signal Messenger is the only IM client I use now, and I know I've moved some of you onto it. There's a link to their blog at the bottom there, which as an engineer is frankly semi-arousing. That's That's a blog post about how they do content discovery whilst knowing nothing at every stage of its flow through software and hardware and even within the hardware. It's crazy the lengths they go to know nothing. Now contrast that and be very careful with the likes of WhatsApp that will say they use the Signal protocol for end-to-end encrypted messaging if you turn it on. Remember, they're not particularly interested in the content. That's the bit that's encrypted. They're interested in the metadata, and they've still got the metadata. Ditch it, move to Signal. What's going on? Oh, there we go. DuckDuckGo, privacy-aware search engine. Frankly, it used to be rubbish, but I'm really pleased that it's thrived. And I've been using it for 12 months or so, and it is a perfectly capable alternative to Google for untracked search. Interestingly, I don't know if you saw this little snippet. Google's paying $16 billion, and that's sterling, so that's even more in dollars. What's that, $20 billion, to be the default search engine on iOS. That's broadly $10 or £10 per device per year. And that's just for the opportunity to be the default search engine, because of course you can change it. Brave, you might have seen from some of my screenshots, don't use Chrome. Chrome is built on Chromium. Chromium is the open source browser engine, admittedly sponsored by Google. Chrome is Chromium plus the Google specific stuff. Brave is Chromium plus some privacy specific stuff. Now there's moves afoot to de-Google even Chromium, which are commendable, but in the interim, Brave is a great option. It detects and strips out canvas fingerprinting. It strips out various sort of flavors of cookies, sort of first domain cookies, third-party cookies. Strips out ads, strips out all sorts of tracking, and you can tweak the settings on a per-domain basis, and it will remember them for when you go back. It's tremendous. Home automation. I've tried most of the commercial products, and they're generally incomplete or rubbish. Home Assistant, install it on a Raspberry Pi, and it'll solve all of your problems. Those cameras in your children's bedroom really don't need to be streaming video via the cloud. You could just keep it local. Pi-hole, DNS black holing for the whole network, for your home or for your office. Strip out ads, strip out tracking at the network level. And this is commercial, but they open source the code. And they're also custodians of OpenPGP.js. PGP is great, but it's a pain in the bum to use, particularly on mobile devices and things. Proton does it transparently, so even your granny can use it. So as an alternative for friends and family to, say, Google, that is great. Now, you know I haven't said delete your social media, because frankly, I don't think you'd listen to me. I haven't been on Facebook for many years, and I think my life is better as a result. But it's not to say that's not without price. One of my mates committed suicide. I didn't know he had committed suicide. I didn't know the warning signs because I'm not on Facebook. And I've got many instances, many stories like that. But like I say, that's a price I'm willing to pay. We all need to make a decision. It's not for me to tell you black and white, you shouldn't do this or you should do something else. We all need to make a decision where on that scale we want to sit. How much of this free stuff we want, and how much of ourselves and our loved ones are we giving up in return to get it. And you may decide you don't care, you're going to give everything because you want free cat pictures. Or you may, after today, just want to tweak that equation slightly and start to protect your user data a little bit more. That brings me to the end of my talk. Mr. Duffett will be relieved to hear. I hope you have a fantastic AstriCon. If it's your first time, everyone here is really, really friendly, but if you're the sort that doesn't like talking to strangers, hopefully I'm less of one after 45 minutes or so, so come find me. I'm more than happy to buy you a beer. Similarly, if there's any questions, come and find me in the bar, and you might spot a theme there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cracking keynote from Simon. No time for questions and answers, because we've got to get to the sessions, and the content is excellent. I already saw somebody tweet yesterday that they wish they could be in 2 places at once, because there's so much good content here at AstriCon. So get to the sessions. Remember, lunch at 12 in the National Ballroom B. Trevi tonight, 4:30 for the happy hour. And remember, if you want to win a fabulous prize, get cracking on the Astra Quest. Thank you very much. Have a great AstriCon.
From the moment you connect a Digium phone to your SwitchVox system, you know it's better. These phones are designed to communicate with your SwitchVox system in a way that no other phone on the market can do. Installation is simple because they were designed to work together. With plug-and-play provisioning, the system automatically recognizes and configures Digium phones as soon as they are connected. You can get employees talking in minutes. This is more than a phone system. It's a better way to communicate. These HD IP phones are designed to leverage the power of your SwitchVox phone system and extend the unique features of the switchboard web interface to your desk phone. With Digium phones, you're in control of your communications. You can see the status of your coworkers and call queues. You can control what happens to your incoming phone calls. You'll know more about your caller before you ever pick up the phone. You'll be able to see the status of your contacts and easily route calls appropriately based on their presence. Call queues are easily visible. Now you can manage your messages with visual voicemail from your desk phone or smartphone. The combination of Digium HD phones and your SwitchVox system give you more power to communicate anywhere, anytime. We invite you to learn more about these powerful phones and see how we can help your business do more than just communicate.
Chekovic and I founded NSS in 1998. We become a Digium partner in 2007, and we've been solely selling Digium or SwitchVox and Asterisk PBXs since 2007.
We get a lot more profit margin with Digium products than we do with anybody else. We say, hey, we're going up against this product and we'll get a few more points, which helps us out in the long run and helps us win the deal with a lower price up front.
Before becoming a Digium partner, I think our business, NSS, evaluated several different companies in this space. It's really a no-brainer with Digium. Not only do they provide higher margins, more support offerings, but the product's rock solid. Therefore, our customers, it's easy for them to decide when we go out selling.
Digium is just a great partner to work with because of the support we get from start to finish. We get leads, we get great demos. It's easy to bring a customer in. They make the customer feel welcome. The product is really solid. We very rarely have issues, and then when issues do come up, Digium support is great to work with.
Just having a good, responsive support group that we can reach out to anytime we have an issue arise or may need, a competitive analysis or anything to help out win business, is great to have so close to us.
They will come out and do demos for us or provide us with case studies, anything that we want to do, like this partner video, to get the message out or, promote the product. They help us do that.
Since I'm a recent hire, they came on, they're like, here's all of our Digium resources, ask them anything, which has been great for me because then I can send any email question I have or call anybody up and I get the answer I need right away.
The owners of the company have been working with Digium for well over 10 years. I have been working both with Digium as a customer. We had Digium products in another business I worked with, and now working with NSS as a reseller partner, knowing the Digium community from that side, it's fabulous. So it gives me both perspectives when I go out in a selling scenario talking to our customers.
We know that when we get a lead, from start to finish, we get that lead through marketing process, pre-sales, post-sales, that Digium's going to be with us from start to finish.
Welcome to the Digium.
Good afternoon. How are you all doing? Woo! Are you ready for a very, very exciting AstriCon? Of course you are. I'll just try that again. Are you ready for a very exciting AstriCon? Yes, of course you are. As you know, something quite momentous has happened a few weeks ago, and it's drawn a level of attention that is very exciting for everybody concerned. We've had all sorts of people come out of the woodwork to AstriCon that haven't been for, at least 3 or 4 years. And so it's good to see everybody along. My name's David Duffett. I'm the Worldwide Community Director. Very excited to be here. And we thought, given that this is an open source community of transparency, we would have an Ask Them Anything panel. And for historic reasons, I quite like the idea of ATA as the kind of set of initials for it. I thought that would work very nicely. Just a side note. Anyway, what I'd like to do is welcome up to the stage some key people from both Sangoma, the acquirers, and Digium, the acquirees, or however you might say that. And we're going to then open the floor to questions from you, where you can literally ask anything. There are certain parameters, and Tony will explain some of that when he comes up. In fact, let's get him up first. It's Tony Lewis, COO of Sangoma. Have a seat. Have a seat, Tony. Okay, and then, all right, and then we'll get Matt Fredrickson. No, we're saving that special pronouncement, Matt. Matt Fredrickson, the lead for the Asterisk project. Matt. Closely followed by Brian Walters, VP of Software Engineering at Sangoma. And then if you look very carefully at the slide, you'll see they got Matt Jordan's name slightly out there. It's Matt Jordan. Welcome. CTO. Matt is the CTO at Digium. And so what I'd like to do is just allow these gentlemen to introduce themselves so that you can hear from them. And then we'll just go straight into open questions. So Tony, you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. My name's Tony Lewis. I'm with Sangoma Technologies. I'm the COO at Sangoma. I oversee support, engineering, pretty much everything but marketing and finance. I'm happy to be here. I've been to AstriCon for, 10 years now. We're going to go through and ask us anything. We're going to try to be as transparent as we can. One thing I do want to say is a little different for the community inside of Asterisk is Sangoma is a publicly traded company. And as a publicly traded company, we have to be careful what we do, what's called selective disclosure, which means we can't come to a group here and disclose something big that we haven't disclosed to the markets first. So there may be some questions you might ask, probably not, but if you do, we may have to say, I'm sorry, we can't talk about that. We're going to try to be as transparent as we can, but as a public company, we do have some regulations that we have to follow. So beyond that, we're trying to be open here.
Okay, thank you. Matt.
All right, my name is Matt Fredrickson, and I've worked at Digium, or I worked at Digium since about 2001, so for a number of years. I'm currently the head of the Asterisk project. I inherited that from Mr. Jordan a few years ago, and it has been a delight being able to work more intimately and closely with the Asterisk community. I've enjoyed that a lot. For those of you that haven't met me already. And I have recently learned about this public disclosure knowledge thing as well, selective disclosure thing. And so I'm learning about how it applies to my job as well, which is complicated. Anyway, thank you all for coming today.
Okay.
I'm Brian Walters. I'm VP of Software Engineering at Sangoma. Some of the things that I oversee there is the free PBX project, PBExact, Zulu UC, if anyone's used that. I've been involved with free PBX and Asterisk since about 2007. Some of you guys I know, a lot of you I don't. If not, come to our booth and say hi.
Thank you.
Matt Jordan, CTO at Digium, now part of Sangoma. Really happy to be able to say that, actually. It's really cool. For a long time, as Matt F. alluded, we always have to say Matt F., by the way, because there's like lots of Matts at Digium. The joke is, like if you say, I emailed Matt, nobody knows what you mean. So as Matt F. was alluding to, I used to run the Asterisk project a couple of years ago, handed the reins over to Matt. He's done an absolutely fantastic job the last couple of years. I think he's really nurtured the project and brought it along. And that's really awesome to see the success and to see everybody who is still coming to AstriCon and new people coming to AstriCon makes it very exciting. For the last couple of years, I've been very focused on Digium's cloud efforts, particularly in the R&D side of things. And I like all those kinds of bits. If you just came from Life Madson's Kubernetes / OpenShift talk, where did I go with that? I liked it. It was really cool. So, anyways, those are the kinds of things that we like to kind of play around in the R&D side on, and that's kind of been a lot of fun for us as well, just to kind of look at where that technology space is going.
Great, thanks for those
Matt, do you
introductions.
remember 2 years ago at AstriCon, and there was that famous picture taken? We were going like this. That was some signs
Purely
of things
coincidence.
To come. Yes, yes. That was not selective disclosure.
The lead from the Asterisk project, Matt. Just a tweetable moment, that. So the way we're going to do this is we've got 2 mic runners. We've got lovely Tash somewhere, who's got a microphone there. We've got lovely James over here, who's right close to the mic. And so if you've got a question, raise your hand and they will come to you. Julie, since there's a lot of people here, can I ask you to also keep track of who's raising their hands so we get to everybody as well? First one in the front row, it's only AstriCon veteran, James Bodie.
We're vetoing James.
Is this a dangerous
Sorry,
question?
James, they can't answer that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
1, 2. Yeah, it's on, yeah. So, a warmer into the bank. One of the great things about AstriCon is that it's not just Asterisk, it's the complete ecosystem. And the community side of it is brilliant. That's one of the reasons why there's so many people here. And everybody comes to AstriCon to start off from. So, Tony, this is aimed at you. What are the plans, the great Sangoma plan for AstriCon in years to come? I'm really keen to find out.
Fair question.
I don't foresee that changing. I mean, AstriCon is about the community. It's where the excitement for Asterisk is growing. It's where we talk a lot about what's coming out in Asterisk. Over the years, Free PBX has been very involved in AstriCon. We used to do a Free PBX World event here. So I don't foresee how AstriCon works or the idea of AstriCon changing. Maybe its times will change. Maybe it'll be co-located with another event someday. Not sure. Don't know on that answer. But as far as AstriCon going away or the meaning behind AstriCon really being about the open source and side of Asterisk and it becoming commercialized, I don't see that happening at AstriCon. It's not the clientele and what we're trying to do with AstriCon.
I can see James twitching. I think I can anticipate what he's going to ask. Well, he's made allusions to the open source community. We've got the Free Switch guys here. We've got the Homer guys here.
Yep.
I guess that's part of the question
But
as
just
well.
like Free PBX was a member of AstriCon for years, we did our Free PBX World here, and you guys embraced Free PBX into AstriCon. Yeah. So, we come with open arms. It's an open source telephony, so Asterisk is a big part of it. But I see Anthony's here. I think 2nd year in a row, Anthony. Which is great from Free Switch. The Homer guys, Fred from Camilio, these are great things. What makes open source telephony so fun.
And Daniel from Camellia as well.
That's right.
Class.
Yes.
Okay.
So not only do you consider it answered, but answered in the way you want it as well. How about that? Who's got our next question? At the front there, Natasha. Thank you.
What's your plan for the DCAP program? First one, and if you decide to deprecate it, are the current DCAPs going to be grandfathered into the new program?
DCAP's about Asterisk, so there would be no plans of deprecating that. The training program as a whole will come together, so right now there's a training program at Sangoma, there's one at Digium. That department will come together, they'll offer training, whether it's on phones or SwitchVox or Asterisk or Free PBX. Those teams will come together, but DCAP itself and what DCAP means isn't going to change.
Any answers from the Mats on that?
I liked his answer.
Sounded good to me as well. Yeah. I mean, DCAP, it definitely is. It's got a D in it, right? I guess that's kind of the question. I don't know what that...
It could become SCAP.
I don't know which layer of the question you're...
We'll send you a sticker.
So does the name change? Maybe. I hadn't thought of that yet. That's really a marketing product management decision. I wouldn't think so. There's a lot of, just like we'd never change the name of Asterisk, there's a lot of meaning behind it. I'm not going to go change the name of Dottie to get rid of Digium on it. Digium's a Sangoma company, so.
Okay. All righty, who's our next one? We've got Dan at the front, so let's, James, if you'd like to give a mic to Dan, and then we've got Alex near the back over there.
maybe not anytime soon, but will Digium, the company, disappear and everything will get put into Sangoma? Because I can only imagine 2 marketing teams and 2 training teams, like you were just saying, at which point Digium isn't really anything anymore and doesn't need to be anything anymore, and it's just Sangoma.
So in the interest of transparency, that decision has not been made. Does the Digium name stay or not? There are companies who've succeeded keeping 2 different names. You know, there's been discussions internally of, do we rename Sangoma to Digium? Do we keep the Sangoma name? Do we do Sanginium or some combination of the 2? Sangomium. We've looked at a lot of different options.
I like Sangomium because it sounds like an element. Right?
With a symbol.
So I will say...
the other direction, Digigoma, sounds like I've got a medical condition.
Yeah.
So that's my vote,
Yeah.
but you know.
So we've talked about it way beyond just the marketing team. I don't know if Jim Mackey's here, who runs...
He's flying late.
He's flying in now. So Jim Mackey runs all of marketing for Sangoma and Digium. That's who David now works for. He was a Sangoma employee. You know, when we acquired Digium, Danny and Leslie, who were married, Danny's CEO and Leslie was VP of marketing, didn't come with the new company. So Jim stepped in and took over the marketing role at Digium, and there's been a lot of discussions internally between marketing, sales, product management of what do we do with the names. We don't know, to be honest. Yes. Mark, come up here. Mark, come on.
Okay. Thanks.
We got a seat right here for you, Mark.
Saved a seat for you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Okay, so I think we've got... Nice to see you on. That's what happens when you walk in a room. We've got Alex at the back with the next question, please.
Hi. I think this may track Dan's question somewhat and probably ventures into the labyrinth of selective disclosure. But to the extent that Digium is Digium and a Sangoma company, is that, to what degree is that elusive of your approach to future governance? I mean, it really, this is complementary to Dan's question, but notwithstanding names, will Digium continue to exist in Huntsville? Will it continue to have its office there? Will it more or less gather its current shape? To what extent will Digium be constituted in the foreseeable future?
So Huntsville remain a very large operation for Sangoma. We have a very long-term lease there, so we're not going anywhere anytime soon. There's a lot of staff there, so you know, as far as Huntsville as a large epic center, I can tell you, even in the Sangoma world, there are more people out of Huntsville than Sangoma has at any single office. We're a much more diverse around the world offices. We have 2 offices in India, UK, Ecuador, Colombia, where else, Brian?
Canada.
Canada, Cleveland, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Buffalo. We have offices everywhere. So we don't have an office with 100 plus people in it. Our biggest office has maybe 40 people in it.
Can I throw out maybe an addendum too to what you're talking about
Yes.
there, Tony? So one of the things that I think really makes this work is that the cultures at the company, while there's some differences between the cultures that were at Digium and Sangoma, there's a lot of similarity between the culture. And so regardless of the name or physical locations, there's a lot of, you know, when you look at an acquisition kind of thing, trying to make sure that companies are going to actually fit together and match well together. We're both open source companies. This is something that we do. This is something that we're used to, and we had a very similar way of looking at the world. So I think, you know, regardless of the name that's on the outside of the building, it's a very, it feels normal, right, coming into work every day.
Okay, thanks for that, Matt. I see we've got Alexandra at the back with the microphone there.
I'm on? Yeah, I'm on. Well, I'm the top-notch developer I learned today. So I'm the top-notch external developer, distributed 800 commits or something. No, I don't know. Anyway, I have a wildcard on that. So I'm unemployed currently. I have a wildcard on that. So I have no responsibility to anyone else. So I can ask the tough questions. we talked about the long-term decisions. What about the mid-term decisions? You all have hardware desktop phones. You both have hardware desktop phones. Any decisions on that, which to ditch, or do we see all three lines going on, or what's the story on that?
Product line question.
Yeah, product line question. So your example is, for example, phones. So Sangoma's got phones, Digium has phones. Is one line going to go away anytime soon? No. Will a line go away someday? Yeah, phones evolve, right? Look at the original line of Digium D-series phones, then they came out the D6. So as that normal evolution happens over the next few years, that's when you'll see more of that combining of phone lines. But between now and the normal evolution, no. I mean, they're a big chunk of revenue for both companies, and we can't do anything to disrupt that revenue.
Okay, who's got our next question? I noticed, by the way, that so far the questions have been like of a commercial and a corporate nature, and not about Asterisk, the open source project, or free PBX.
I was expecting to sit here and say nothing and let these guys talk about it.
We've got Dan back in the front there.
I'm going to go off the commercial and into Asterisk. How much of a influence will Sangoma / free PBX / anything else that Sangoma is doing have effects on Asterisk plans? Yeah.
Sure. Do you mind if I take this one, Tony?
No, take it.
So, excuse me. As many of you already know, as a project, or at least the Digium employees that are responsible for working on the Asterisk project, because the project is bigger than just the Digium employees that work on it, right? There are a bunch of external people that very regularly work on it, but there are a number of software developers that work full-time on the Asterisk project within Digium, and we already have large commercial customers that we work for, right? We work for the SwitchVox team in San Diego. We also have people that have licensing agreements and SLAs with us and things like that we work for, and we have different conditions that are attached to that work. Now we have the free PBX team to work for as well. So for us, this is another customer that we have to, keep happy, that we meet their needs for and things like that. And for us, it's a natural iteration on a behavior we already have.
And I would add to that, just because you guys wouldn't know that, but for example, the free PBX project has had a commercial agreement with Asterisk and Digium for years on us being able to push features and bugs that we needed. It was something David Hardy and I worked out, 8 years ago. So that influence has always been there. Nobody knew it, but that influence has always been there. And free PBX itself is a very large install base for Asterisk, the largest install base for Asterisk. So we've already kind of had that influence, and it hasn't affected Asterisk. So it would remain the same way it is. Most things free PBX would want is, whether you use free PBX or not, is great for the community, things that we've pushed to get into Asterisk over the years. So I would expect to see that continuing to evolve and work the same way it has.
I think I'd also add to that, Tony, that as Matt pointed out earlier, there's a lot of similarities between the companies and the teams, and free PBX has always relied on Asterisk as that core engine, so we've always tried to push things back upstream and really work with Digium to go ahead and make the product better as a whole. So I don't see that changing.
Sounding very positive. Who is our next questioner? Just there. Tash, can you find that gentleman, please? Thank you.
This question's for Tony. They touched briefly on the phones. So let's ask about the product, free PBX, and the product, SwitchVox. SwitchVox, I think, more competes with the PBExact line. But like any big car manufacturer who has multiple vehicles within their stable, are you going to continue to run both platforms?
Yes. Again, kind of like phones, SwitchVox has got a lot of revenue attached to it, whether it's SwitchVox Premise or SwitchVox Cloud. We can't do anything to disrupt that. What you will see, and what we spend a lot of time during due diligence and talking, is the sharing of features. So instead of us both building something, so if we want to go and build a next-gen UC client, we're going to build that client to work on both applications. Or the queuing engine that is going in SwitchVox using ARI. You'll see that become an option in free PBX. There'll be a lot more sharing of things between the two teams, but they're very different customer bases. SwitchVox is a very turnkey, don't want to tinker with things, don't get under the covers, where free PBX is get under the covers, play with it, tinker with it. So completely different customer base.
Okay, thank you for that. Who's our next question person? There's one just there. It's our friend John. Can you see him? See it in Tash right over the other side. Go ahead, John.
I have a question about the community support forums. Are those going to be combined? The community.asterisk, the community.freepbx, the mailing lists. How is that all going to come together? Is it going to come together?
So FreePBX doesn't have a mailing list, so
You
that
lucky
wouldn't be.
people. What?
Yeah.
I love
Forums, I don't think so, mainly because we happen to both use
We both use Discourse. For our forums, but again, it goes back to kind of some comments that we've made earlier of there's very different, there's a lot of similarities between the communities, but there's a lot of differences as well. So we have to keep that in mind as well. While we're using the same technology behind them and we know how to manage that, it's, we have to think about the community.
I think the better answer to that would be, or add on to that will be, we want to go solve the single sign-on so at least the same user works across all the sites. So whether you go to community.asterisk or community.freepbx, or you go to our portal, or you go to one of the Digium portals for something, the first thing to go solve is all of our single sign-ons so that people have access to all sides of the businesses.
Okay, we've got one there. Tash, you seem to be doing most of the running here. Well done. Thank you. That's Alex again.
Yes. Digium and Sangoma also have two POTS interface hardware businesses. TDM, analog, and the rest. I guess those are the only options, really. I, at least, don't perceive those to be catering to two vastly different market segments or customer bases. What's the future of that?
So I would slightly disagree there. So inside the space here, you guys probably see them as the same. But inside of Sangoma, take our TDM lines of cards. A lot of that is sold in the data business still. Probably a third of the cards, half of the cards we sell are in the data side of the business still. And in the API side, so people who want to connect to the cards using our APIs of OnePipe, so they don't use Asterisk or FreeSwitch. Our cards do support FreeSwitch. I don't think the Digium cards do, last I knew. Maybe
unless
through free
somebody has written
TDM.
something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our cards do support the free TDM stack that FreeSwitch uses. So they are kind of different. And then you get into the next whole line of our cards, which is the Dialogic cards that we bought a year ago. So you get into the Divas and CGs and these 15-year-old cards, and they're completely different beast.
SS7 gateway.
Yes, and yes. So inside the Asterisk community, you see them as overlapping, but we see them as very different. So our cards, the Sangoma, I keep saying ours, I'm sorry for that. The Sangoma cards will remain just because they have another clientele base, and the Digium cards will remain because they're very popular inside of Asterisk. We may decide to promote or push people more to one side. So we may say, if you use an Asterisk, use the Digium cards. You don't need OnePipe on top of it if you use the Digium cards. So that may be a product management positioning decision we make, but they serve different markets.
Thank you. Okay. Who's our next one? Sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Daniel. So far you discussed about joining the efforts together, but somehow still keeping the same products or devices. Have you set like the immediate goal of a collaboration, like a project, to show that the teams now can work together, and that's it? Would be, I don't know, the next Asterisk would be made together by, I don't know, taking from, I don't know, FreePBX, something that you like it or whatever. Do you have such a project, like
I'm just thinking, let's throw back to Matt
Yep,
Jordan
that's
first.
what I was doing.
Oh, man.
Video, Matt.
Well, the video is a good example, yeah. So as you guys are probably aware, Asterisk has spent, when did we kick off the SFU work, Matt?
It was 15 was the first major release.
So really it's been 2 releases now. We've been much more heavily investing in video. That's something that at this point is getting, I'd say, really at a point where it could be adopted by FreePBX, and you could probably see some pretty cool things coming into FreePBX that makes use of the video functionality that's been put in Asterisk. Tony's alluded to a number of, and there's been a lot of questions obviously around product sorts of things getting melded together. you know, from just merging companies together, figuring out how you do business together, there is a mountain of systems that drive the businesses. That is, I mean, nobody here cares about it, but you know, we care a lot about it. Things that allow us to actually take orders and process orders and put things in boxes and ship them out the door, right? There's lots of opportunities for the teams at both companies to collaborate together on just making the engine work better and run better. And that's actually where probably some of our initial focus is going to be, rather than, you know, doing a large kind of massive project that's necessarily externally facing. But as Tony alluded to, there's lots of interesting opportunities in both SwitchVox, PBExact, FreePBX to go take advantage of, with new features and capabilities to start slowly but surely pulling things and making it common across both PBX lines. There's interesting things with phones to start looking at. So there's lots of opportunities for us to start kind of thinking through how do we go provide different features, different capabilities for the different kinds of customers that are coming to us.
And can I add something on real quick?
Yeah.
I think that was great. And I think inevitably in the process that I go through in planning out what targets we want to hit for new major releases and things like that, the free PBX team, at the very least, they're another group that I have a primary interest in figuring out how we can meet their goals as well, right? And so that's going to be a natural part of the planning process.
And you've historically done that for a lot of years. Not maybe as much as now you might, but it has. And you know, one of the big challenges we came back was, one of the first things we came back with Matt was performance. Even during due diligence, it was performance, and you start seeing the work you did on PJSIP because we were pushing back on performance, and you know, we're talking hints. We really need to spend some time on hints and subscriptions in Asterisk. It really kills us on dial plan reloads, the way that works. So, you know, free PBX is kind of, over the years, has gone from this SOHO to this mid-business to, we've got enterprises running, you know, 5, 8, 10,000 users on a single box, and you know, they're crippling over themselves with, some of it is free PBX's design, of course, as 15-year-old design, and some of it is old Asterisk design that we've got to go do some improvements on both teams.
Thank you. We've got one over here with David.
So, two questions.
James. Go ahead.
One question, are we going to start seeing in the future more commercialization of Asterisk, and that there's going to be more modules, but we're going to have to start paying for it? Or is it just going to continue as it is right now with the way open source is and everything's going to be released under a dual license?
So I will let Matt Jordan take that, because there's been discussions at Digium for a while on things related to that.
There's always, I mean, whenever you're running an open source project underneath the dual license, you're always looking at what makes sense for Digium to produce into the open source community versus do something commercially, right? Now, keep in mind, Asterisk is an open source project. There is literally nothing I can do to prevent anybody in this room from producing a patch to Asterisk and contributing it upstream. That's the beauty of open source. So regardless of whatever I may think, ooh, if we do this, we could make a module, anybody in this room can make a module too and submit it back to the project. So my notion of what should be commercialized versus open source is an opinion of one that does not impact anybody else in this room from using the project however they see fit. That's the beauty of the GPL, right? So let me just say that. At this point in time, we've got no plans to change the way we're doing Asterisk.
I mean, part of it is Asterisk a framework where free PBX is more an application.
Sure.
So when we commercialize things in free PBX, it's an application for somebody versus a framework or development kit.
And exactly what Tony just said, I think you've also seen probably in the last couple of years, and Matt, you can talk some more about this too, we don't focus as much on the dial plan applications and the sort of app queue kinds of things. The community does a great job of doing things with those applications still today, but we've really been much more focused on PJSIP, ARI, sort of providing APIs and interfaces to let people go build things and doing the under the hood sort of plumbing, because that's what we think Asterisk provides the most value.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to. Thanks.
And of course, with this being an open source project, yeah, there are commercial modules in free PBX, but you could build your own if you wanted to, but it seems like a no-brainer to spend a little bit of money and do a shortcut there. David, do you want to come back on that briefly, because I've got a gentleman just there. Have you got anything else to say?
Another question, I'll wait.
Okay, let's go to this gentleman just there, please.
Michael LeBlanc, LeBlanc Communications Group in Connecticut. We are enthusiastic sellers and installers of SwitchVox. We're excited about the merger, really excited. So Sangoma has a nice line of SPCs, I'm guessing those could help us deal with the mess that Digium got us into by creating this soft phone app that makes everyone run around using their phone anywhere they want, at home, not in a lockdown office, that's for sure. So is that something you're working on, giving us more security for our remote installations of all these branch offices and home users? I have another question after that.
Yeah, so it hasn't been looked at yet as far as SBC with SwitchVox. I mean, the Sangoma SBC is agnostic. I mean, it works with anything that's SIP compliant out there. So there'd be no reason it wouldn't work straight up with, no, because it's SIP only. So of course DPMA would, could we write something through SBC to handle DPMA? There's a demand for it and there was a market and we could actually sell more SBCs. Sure, we're entrepreneurs, right? We're capitalists, we want to make money. So, if we can sell to SwitchVox SBCs and there's a need for it, let's build a business case for it.
Okay, and then I've heard, I'm not a programmer, and I wish that we had a better access to good API programmers. That documentation leaves a lot to be desired, at least on the Digium side. Will you be coming together with a better documentation level for everything? And could you create, please, this is the community right here, an ecosystem that lets business guys like me who can't program our way out of a garbage can to get access to people who want to make money so I can create really cool apps for my customers? Is there something like you could do for us?
We should think about that and talk about it.
That's the biz list already.
Yeah, I mean, there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah, there's differences between different kinds of developers too. One of the challenges I think we have always faced is that certain types of developers are attracted to the Asterisk community. And when you're trying to build applications on top of Asterisk, that's usually a very different kind of developer than the one that has traditionally come to the Asterisk community. I think that's one of the nice things actually that the free PBX community brings to the table, is just a very different kind of person who's been attracted to that gives us the ability to kind of point them towards some of the APIs and things that have been developed in Asterisk.
Yep. And just free PBX and how everyone goes in and does a lot of modifications and builds stuff for it. A little exchange place potentially. Yeah, it's worth discussing. There's always the lawyer's hat has to go on of what's the liability to us now if we connect people together, but that stuff can be solved.
Thank you. Let's go back to David for his second bite of the cherry there.
So, real quick question, as far as WAN router goes, is there any plans to sort of morph that into Daddy for, at least for Asterisk, they don't have to run anything extra? Because I'm still using a lot of TDM cards.
Oh, WAN router?
Yeah, to get rid of that or sort of make the functionality in Daddy so I don't have to run WAN router on top of Daddy. Because that's been one of my issues with the Sangoma cards.
Yeah. Is there a plan? No. And honestly, why? It's a lot of resources for a dying technology. And we can put that resources into things that actually matter to people versus trying to extend out TDM that's dying. The people that want one pipe have it. The people that don't can use straight up DOTI cards. Again, Digium cards. We don't care which cards you use. Yeah, Mark. You got a microphone?
Can we borrow that microphone real quick?
You're just speaking to your chest. Nothing awkward about that.
We'll get nice. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay. So I'll just say that when we first started doing our Digium cards at the time, of course, we had gotten introduced to Jim Dixon as the Zapata Telephony project. We thought that the TDM card business would last probably 3 to 5 years, and that was in 2001. So yeah. There was an old saying, copper may be buried, but it's not dead, but it is kind of starting to get pretty long in the tooth. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah. So the investment we'd never get a return on that investment. One pipe's 20-year-old code.
There's probably a few people in the room that hope facts will go in the same way, haven't they?
No, we love facts, please.
Okay, we've got a question down here. It's Tori. Go ahead, Tori.
So what color are you going to adopt, blue or orange?
Both. Haven't you seen? So free PBX was historically orange, and Sangoma was blue. So blue and orange are our colors already.
That was a straight answer to a straight question right there, wasn't it? Okay.
What about the contributor agreement license on Asterisk?
Yep.
So, you might be that one? Or you can.
Yeah, from a contract standpoint, Sangoma purchased Digium, everything transfers over. Sangoma's just a shareholder of Digium. So all of your contributor license agreements are still there. They're assignable. Their own, there's a new owner that owns Digium, but nothing's changed there. And Sangoma happens to use, thanks Michelle, we use the exact same contributor license agreement. We copied it from Digium 10 years ago. So we use the exact same language on ours.
We got Dan coming in for like a fourth one or something. Tash, James, can you deal with Dan there?
Mike?
Yeah, statute of limitations.
Now that we've got an awful lot of dev resource within Sangoma, does that mean more dev resource will get potentially assigned to Asterisk in the future? Which means we get more stuff out of Sangoma.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Yes. Or as an open source project.
I didn't want you to say that, but yeah, patch is welcome. But
yeah, patch.
No, it's good. For me, Sangoma is now the steward of two very big projects.
Not just for you, Dan.
Not just
for
me,
everybody.
For everyone. Yeah, so I wonder whether or not some of the free PBX team that know Asterisk really well will eventually start working on some Asterisk stuff and be very agile between teams. And
so that would be our hope someday. So if we want to go tackle something big in Asterisk, we can pull off, some of the developers that know Asterisk at Sangoma, and vice versa. We could pull off, and if we want to go tackle something big in free PBX for 3-4 months, if your answer is Asterisk going to get a bigger team full time, I don't think so, but we have a much bigger resource pool, so it's easier to move people on to go do big projects. Does that mean Asterisk's never going to get a bigger team? No. I mean, it's supply and demand, and as Asterisk grows and keeps growing, we have to put more people on it. But as it matures, it becomes, as you know, much harder to do stuff in. It's not as easy as it was when Mark came out with 1.2.
Uploaded from FTP.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go with Michael.
You never lost the source code to Asterisk, right?
Going to go with Michael on the front row now.
My question is for Mark. Mark, why did you sell Digium?
Straight in there.
I guess that's a good question. I don't know that I have a 100% direct answer, but I would say that, and I'll probably speak to this a little bit more tomorrow. I mean, Digium is maybe a little bit like having a child, and I don't have any children, but I used to be one, and so I think I can speak from experience. I still am in many, many ways. My friends are here with me will attest to that. But essentially, when you first start out, you're trying to create what it is that you want it to be, and as it grows, you get a lot more people that influence, and it sort of becomes its own personality, carries its own personality. And it's been more than 18 years, 19 years now, and I don't know, I guess about 8-9 years ago, I started playing around with airplanes, and that's kind of grabbed my attention, and I want to make sure that that the project continues on. There obviously the influence that the project has had on the industry and on lots of people's lives that have built businesses around Asterisk is really important. There are a lot of people, even obviously in Huntsville, whose livelihood depends on it, and it was important to find a good, stable partner to be able to connect Digium with to assure its continuation forward and to continue to advance the project in a way that will keep it being relevant, hopefully for much, much longer.
Thank you. I just want to ask a question of my own before we go to the gentleman at the back that sort of follows on from that. A lot of people do use free PBX and do use Asterisk, but of course the Asterisk community is wider than just free PBX, isn't it? There's
Absolutely.
Lots of people that have built. What will the attitude be in the future? It's been a very benevolent one to other people in the community. How's it looking for the future, do you think?
I would say the same. We kind of treat free PBX that way too, and Asterisk got as big as it has and disrupted the industry it has because it was open arms and accepting and tried to support anyone and everyone.
Very cool. Okay, gentleman right at the back there.
So half the question was already answered. So my question was, why acquire and why get acquired?
Not
Why
sure.
acquire?
Why?
And
Oh,
why
Yeah,
get
why-
acquired?
so you'll have to, I guess, speak to that one.
I think, you know, this started 2 years ago, these discussions.
Depending on how you look at it, the very original Asterisk did run on the Sangoma card.
Yeah, good point, good point.
The very original one, because we didn't have Digium cards at that
Yes.
point.
But our discussions on an acquisition started at AstriCon 2 years ago.
Thereabouts.
Good point.
Very original one, because we did.
Almost like a photo was taken.
Yeah, yes. But then it was just kind of a dream of, you know, Mark saying, yeah, maybe time for me to leave and kind of need to find somebody who actually gets what we're doing, isn't going to come in and just destroy it like a Microsoft or, you know, a proprietary only company. So, you know, we spent kind of 2 years back and forth thinking about it, would it work, and starting those discussions. And, you know, for Sangoma, it was kind of just a natural fit for us. You know, we've been on a rampage of acquisitions, 7 of them in 7 years, 6 of them in 3.5 years. And this one just, it made sense to us. We got it. We knew the people. You know, I have a lot of friends at Digium. A lot of them I end up hiring over at Sangoma.
I feel like we kind of friend zoned them for a while, and then we kind of warmed up again. Kind of like, all right, we'll look at it again. Why not?
Let's get the band back together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's get the band We're on a mission from God.
Okay. We've got our next question. Okay. Well, you go ahead, but then we've got one in the middle as well. You go first, sir.
Well, my question goes to Mr. Mark there. I got to say, I love the shirt. I'm from Oshkosh, Wisconsin myself. But now that, you know, we've seen, like you said, your focus has changed a little bit. You've sold the company. You're just going to, like, disappear now? Are you going to go away? Are you not coming back anymore?
Well, as long as I'm welcome at AstriCon, I'm going to continue to come to AstriCon because I want to see where people continue to take the project. I mean, obviously, a very large portion of my life has been dedicated to this project, and I want to see it continue to grow and to continue to see the directions that the next generation of developers have been taking it. So I don't plan to be completely unplugged, but I'm working on trying to do the same thing in a different industry now, trying to apply many of the lessons of Asterisk in an industry. Of course, I thought there would never, ever be an industry like telecom that was so far backwards until I got in airplanes and discovered how bad the situation around avionics are.
But you thought telecom was expensive.
Oh, for those of you that don't know, so it turns out that avionics, which are the computers in the airplanes, they are sort of transitioning from being a hardware product to being much more software focused, but people keep trying to sell them as if they are a hardware product. There's also this kind of changing regulatory environment that's going on. They're really expensive. They're extremely proprietary. People don't, again, they don't even treat it as software, much less, you know, anything really remotely similar to source code is definitely off limits. And so, does this sound like a familiar story to anybody, you know? And people want it to be highly customized, and it's very difficult and very expensive to customize for some reasons that are very technical because of the certification hurdles associated with it, and some that are not very technical just because, you know, market size, all that kind of stuff.
The money.
And the money that's associated with it. So I am building avionics essentially as small software components, and I'm using a lot of lessons of Asterisk for what to do and what not to do, because since we can't have deadlocks, there are no threads and any of this stuff. It's the name of the company is Evolution, and you know, I don't know how many of you guys have airplanes or fly airplanes or anything, but if you're curious, you're welcome to take a look at it. But it's very similar to what I'm trying to do in or what I did, I guess, with Asterisk, but I'm trying to do it in this avionics industry. So hopefully your airplane rides will be less expensive and safer, and pilots will have easier time at it.
And you might hear Alison's voice on the tannoy, won't you?
Yeah, that's why. No threads, no dynamic memory allocation. It's totally different.
Okay, let's go to the gentleman in the middle there.
Okay, so will Sangoma continue to rely on free switch as well?
Absolutely. You know, free switch is actually a core of one of our products. Our SPC lines are based on top of free switch. Again, it would make no sense to go rip that out from a technology standpoint, from a resource standpoint. It wouldn't be business sense to do that. You know, free switch is a great product. It serves us really well on our SPC platform, so no plans at all for that. And I think Nanad's here. Nanad was kind of the brainchild of the SBC at Sangoma. He's now CTO at Sangoma, and he will be the first to say absolutely not, right?
And we're very pleased to have the Free Switch people here at AstriCon as well.
Absolutely.
Tony and Brian and all those folk. Okay,
But what's funny here is Tony, where's Tony? The other Tony.
Maybe he slipped out.
Huh?
He was here.
Oh, okay. We live like an hour apart from each other
Right.
in Wisconsin. It's crazy.
Okay, we've got one right at the back there. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, does Sangoma have any current projects or coming up projects of new technology, core technology that they're looking at, that they're playing with for the future where that could possibly take out Asterisk?
I like how you
I
ended
mean,
that
lots of
question.
companies do.
So you were doing great until the last piece. So I can say the last piece, no, absolutely not.
No?
As far as cool things we're working on, all I can say is we're always looking at really cool things and working on things. And beyond that, I'm going to use selective disclosure.
We got a cool thing.
I'll take one thing too that you know we've built on top of, right, Asterisk as the core is, you know, Zulu. If you guys haven't played with Zulu, I know a lot of you guys in your bags got a QR code to play with it. It's our UC product, soft phone chat. Check it out. You know, a lot of that's been, you know, built on a lot of what Asterisk is able to provide us.
We gave Matt a heart attack when
You
he found
did?
out we built, so Zulu's a stream-based messaging system, so it's phone calls, it's one-on-one chat, private rooms, public rooms, group conversations like WhatsApp and different things. And when we told Matt the whole messaging bus we're using for that is Asterisk, he had a heart attack.
It was a creative use of Asterisk. But you're not using it for all not all messaging flows, so just using it for certain types of application state and things like that. When you said all messages, it's using it as the message bus, I was like all text messages flowing through Asterisk.
Most things flow through it.
Okay, who's our next question person out there? Are we coming towards an end, do you think, here? Oh, one at the front again, our friend at the front. He's trying to compete with Dan. It's who can ask the most questions here, isn't it?
Okay, I got to ask, are you still in Oshkosh?
Yeah.
Really? What part?
Lower Oshkosh, we're right across the street from, well, Oshkosh Truck, right?
Okay.
Which one?
Okay. I went to school in Oshkosh and lived on for years.
Medalist, we're on Medalist.
Okay.
Drive,
Sorry, guys.
so no problem. This question is really for everybody in this room. What do you think if we call Mark the godfather of open source VoIP?
If the hat fits.
Well, that's You'll never lose that time.
So one of the key features that's coming up a lot on deals that we don't always win is the whole true UC, the collaboration, it's screen sharing, it's video conferencing, it's texting, all those things that are the whole UC experience, not just phone calls. What are we doing about that?
So that is what Zulu was designed for, and that's where we talk about, is free PBX and SwitchVox going to become the same? Absolutely not. They're different clienteles, but things like Zulu can be abstracted out to run on both free PBX and SwitchVox. And Zulu's been a year and a half of our work.
Yeah.
You know, it's got screen sharing now in it in beta or not alpha, kind of.
So the current iteration of Zulu has a screen sharing in beta. We're working through some issues there. But yeah, the current iteration's been a little over a year's worth of work of just kind of rewriting a lot of the concepts and things that we got feedback from previous versions on to really give us the base to be able to do the things that exactly what you're talking about of screen sharing, video, soft phone, chat, everything all in one and really fit that UC market.
Yep.
Yep.
So video's the next piece, and that's what we're talking about with Asterisk 15, 16, that big push that finally lets us now take Zulu and build the client side for Asterisk 16 with full video support. So that's what the teams are actually starting to investigate. Screen sharing is basically what video is for the most part, right? They're very similar. So we've actually started that work, and that will be coming out in the future with Zulu. And I think, Matt, teams have started dissecting Zulu on SwitchVox, how how feasible that's going to be.
We have written that topic down on a whiteboard.
And started looking at some code.
But it's absolutely something we'll be looking into.
Great. I think we've got Carlos over there with a question.
Thank you. Just looking a bit back, we're still in South America. We still use a lot of DDM technology, but more importantly, what is your commitment with R2? That DDM is kind of tepid about it, but Sangoma pushed it a little more.
We basically maintain R2, NAND. It was built by us, sponsored by us. Open R2 was. We own the copyright in R2. We're the copyright holders, and we actually use R2 in our commercial products too. So Open R2 is something we're constantly, anytime things come up, bugs come up, like our Vega gateways use Open R2. I believe we're looking at putting it in the IMGs because 2020 doesn't support R2, so we're looking at putting it in there. So our commitment is, if bugs come in Open R2, we're fixing them.
Great answer. Okay. We're drawing to a close now, but we've probably got time for one or two more questions. Sylvain, Tash, can you get Sylvain down there? Where's our other mic runner disappeared to? James. Oh, right, okay. Thanks. Oh, yeah, we'll leave that one.
So it looks like you are very happy about this acquisition, but we were in Astri DevCon today, and it's not easy for me and maybe for the Astri DevCon to understand what is the future of Asterisk. What's the vision of Sangoma for Asterisk in the future? So, yeah.
Same thing it does today. It's a huge user base of people using the application and building it and supporting it and helping contribute to it. And it's the core of Sangoma. So if you look at Free PBX was the core of Sangoma for years. All the products we sell at Sangoma, not all, but the majority of them are around Free PBX. And Free PBX uses Asterisk, so it's just getting deeper to that core. And Digium's business model is around Asterisk. Without Asterisk, there's nothing to sell.
Yes, Sylvain referred to the DevCon. That's where community developers and Digium and Sangoma people come together. And I personally didn't notice a huge difference today in terms of the agenda. It seemed to follow the same.
So we need Asterisk to keep growing. That's how Sangoma and Digium make money and pay the bills and employ the 350 staff or whatever it is. Without Asterisk growing and continuing to be adopted, our business model doesn't exist. So our business model is around that. And it's not just around Free PBX, it's around Asterisk as a whole. So that's, the people using the Wazoo application that you have and actually, buying phones, whether it's Digium phones or Sangoma phones or Digium cards or Sangoma cards. Those are our customers.
But do you had more developers?
Do
you had more developers on Asterisk? And what is the next features, next major feature, like scalability, something?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going to take it, because I think Tony was answering it from just how the company views the importance of the project. And as I think Matt and Tony answered earlier, there's not necessarily going to be more developers tomorrow working on Asterisk or more developers working on Free PBX, but we have a lot of similarities in our backgrounds. People in both companies know both projects, and so as needs arise, we have a lot more flexibility about being able to put resources on both projects as the needs, as depending upon what we need to do. To your point though about where is the project going, Matt, you can talk a lot more about that than I can. But I will just sort of keep my CTO hat on for a little bit here. One of the things that I have been interested in for several years with Asterisk is just Asterisk as a larger piece of SIP infrastructure. Because when you reach a certain point in building out a large SIP infrastructure, you need more than just Asterisk. You need more than just Camaleo. These things all become pieces and parts that play very well together. And I mean, I think I've said this on a stage now for a couple of years, wrapping in the wrap-up talks and when we've talked about these things. I view Asterisk as a generic media application server. And so if it's media and it's doing cool things to media, that's Asterisk's job in that kind of infrastructure. Hence the emphasis on video over the past couple of years. I think we've got a lot more things to do in video. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with selective forwarding units that we have begun to scratch the surface on. And so there's lots of fertile ground in that area. I think there's a lot of things for us to do to make Asterisk a better player in the kinds of ecosystems that Leif and Doug were talking about today. The whole concept of observability, of knowing what's going on inside your Asterisk instance when in about 2 seconds it may just cease to exist. And you've got to actually understand what happened to those calls because your Kubernetes pool just deallocated the resource, but oh wow, one of the MOS scores on one of those calls was really low. What happened? You have to be able to do that without being able to go SSHing into a box and looking at logs because everything's gone. And so there's a lot of work to be done in Asterisk just to make it work within the sorts of scalable infrastructures that we're seeing getting developed in Kubernetes and OpenShift and all these other types of projects. Matt, you have anything else to throw out on there on it?
No, I thought that was great, actually.
Okay.
So, I guess to reiterate, I think Sylvain, but I don't, at DevCon every year, we don't declare the direction for the next year. The project, I like to remind everyone that the project is an open source project. And everyone that chooses to be involved with the project gets to declare the direction for the next year. I have some goals and things like that I can represent from a Digium/Sangoma perspective, and we try to attack those goals throughout the year. But the project is bigger than just what Digium or Sangoma decides to do, and it's really up to you and to other people who have a self-interest, a vested interest in the project to determine that direction. My job is just to help to corral that and make sure we're not fighting each other and that we're doing so in a way that leads us forward instead of backwards.
Did that answer your question, Sylvain? Oh, sorry.
I would add just a couple people had asked, I heard about, is the team going to get bigger? I'd love it. We'd all love it to get bigger. The best way for it to get bigger is buy more Sangoma and Digium products, right? I mean, that's how we fund this, guys. I'm not here for a sales pitch, but how do you fund Asterisk get bigger? Buy more of our products, support more of Digium and Sangoma.
Didn't you have some breaking news about the D phones and free PBX, Tony?
Oh, absolutely. So D phones are fully supported in free PBX, free of use, for all the phone apps and Endpoint Manager, just like Sangoma phones. You don't have to pay for it anymore.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for your question, Sylvain. Any more questions as we come towards an end now? This is an opportunity, but you've got a gentleman right at the back. Go ahead, sir.
One last. First, I'm sure everybody in this room would like to congratulate both companies and all you men up on that stage for the great work you're doing in keeping these projects alive. My last question is, as a company that's making an investment in the underlying technology and building our products on top of your products, it seems to be apparent that as long as we follow the guidelines and you're layering on top of the core your new development, as long as we're basically building off of what you expose to us in the APIs, we should be good no matter what happens in the underlying core if you should come across changes or whatever you want to make. So I guess I'm correct in saying that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you're
well,
using...
congratulations. I thank you anyway.
Thank you.
I'm sure everybody
We will all thank these guys in a moment as we come to a close, but we've got probably time for one more question, sir, over there. Tash, can you get to that gentleman, please?
So being someone that likes technology, is there any look
hate it,
at
by the way.
augmented reality being introduced into the telco industry for uses in call centers and stuff like that, or support centers, where you could actually have user interactions back into providing support?
How do you define augmented reality?
Like Apple's AR or other people's AR stuff, where basically it allows you to have interactive into the visual realm with also digital.
That sounds like a really exciting thing to do that I haven't looked at yet.
You should. Dan's got to talk.
Yes. That's Dan Jenkins.
Dan always leading on the bleeding edge.
Yeah. Yes, okay, thank you. I mean, but it's a very important message about buying Sangoma and Digium stuff. Because if you want to see the projects continued, that's the only way. If you buy some cheap...
Not continue. They'll keep continuing. Yeah, you want to see them grow.
Yeah, flourish.
Yes.
Okay, so the gentleman said we should congratulate these people, and we should. Let's say thank you to all 5 of our panelists. So if you want photo opportunities, who would like a little chat, they'll be here for a few minutes yet, and then the grand opening of the expo hall will be happening soon. So that's the next thing to do. Thank you very much.